Hello, and welcome to the Everyday Alchemist podcast. Today, we will be having a very human conversation, a very real and raw conversation with a mum. Some stories ask not just to be heard, but to be held with extra care, and today is one of those episodes. A disclaimer, we will be talking about death of a child in this episode. If this is an emotionally triggering topic for you, please jump into another episode now. Okay, so today's episode is deeply meaningful as I am joined by a very special guest, Radhika, who is joining us from Mumbai, India. Radhika is a mother who has experienced both profound love and an unimaginable loss. Welcome, Radhika, to our podcast.
Thank you very much. I was looking forward to being a part of this special channel and your podcast. So, yeah, I'm overwhelmed that you are giving me this honor.
Oh, we've been planning this for a long time, and we both know
True.
why we're doing this today, which we will reveal a little bit later. And I
Absolutely.
do believe that everything happens in divine timing. If we ever had any doubt today, I think we know why we're doing this episode, right?
Absolutely true. Yes.
So Radhika is the mother of Urvi. Unfortunately, Urvi is not here anymore, as she passed away at the age of 6 in August 2022. Urvi was diagnosed with Rett syndrome, which is a genetic and a neurological disorder where the kids seem to develop normal, but as early as 7 to 8 months, they start regressing, where they start to lose normal abilities. For example, they might not crawl, or if they were crawling, they'll stop. There's no walking, words seem to disappear, and normal motor skills stop. Each kid is different, and development is also different, like any child. But generally, these are the traits parents often start noticing at an early stage. And as they get older, they do face many challenges. Most of these kids have very high needs, and sometimes the life expectancy can generally be quite low on average. So that's just a little bit about Rett syndrome for someone that might be listening and not aware what it is. Now,
True.
Radhika, I know this is a very tough topic for you and me because you have gone through this loss of a beautiful child, and I am a mother of a child who has Rett
Living a
syndrome.
beautiful life. Yeah.
Yes,
Living
they
a
give us a
beautiful life,
beautiful life.
managing. And if I would want to definitely add here that inspiring all of us, because I still remember the first time I realized that Urvi has read and I was going through, I saw your page, I saw how you and Nishi's father, they're, I mean, so positively taking care of her. So yeah, we are sailing in the same boat. And I will always remember finding good families of red angels. Yeah, it is a major role. You
It
play a
is.
major role even when we really don't meet physically.
That's so true, and it's been the same for me. Finding people like you on the other side of the world. You're in India, I'm in New Zealand, and this is actually the first time we're connecting online. We've
True.
never spoken live like this. We've always
True.
communicated via voice notes or just messages. So this is really an honor for me to have you here today. So, before we jump into this conversation, I would like to firstly know from your view, could you explain and just share with us who Urvi was beyond Rett syndrome? Because our children are so much more than that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So keeping aside all the constraints that she used to feel as a red child, her birth was beautiful. She was born on the auspicious day of Akshay Tritiya. So in India, it is like the most wonderful day, the most auspicious beginning.
Yeah.
So Sachin and I considered, my entire family rather considered it as the welcoming of Shri Lakshmi into our family. So other things set aside, she was our Lakshmi, and she definitely pulled us up, in the growth ladder of life. So the first part was, yeah, she was the divine presence in our life. Secondly, as a child, she was very sensitive to music. She responded to it beautifully, as in from day one, when her responses also were quite normalish, as in she was reciprocative. Her brain had enough protein to respond to our calling and our singing. The first thing we realized about her was, oh, she it has a beautiful ear towards music. So she chose her music, she chose songs, and to signify that she's loving something, she used to give us her beautiful smile since the tiny age of four
Mm.
5 months. So yeah, one thing for sure is that she was a child who loved music, and Yeah, so, and of course, over the period of all these years, we realized that she was brave, irrespective of what. She was
Yeah.
brave, she went through everything well, and also she really, really chose her own people. So it's like she wouldn't talk to some random person, like, okay, if somebody's coming in, like, hi, Urvi, she'll be like, but then if she knows that somebody is really having deep love for her, they've come all the way to meet her, whether they are our relative or not. Oh, the love that her face used to show, the shine. So I knew that, yeah, this girl knows her people. I mean, she knows and understands vibes of everyone around her. So yeah, that was Urvi. Other than her red, she was a beautiful soul, loved music, loved and understood the love that people are showering on her, and yeah, our divine presence.
Wow, she sounds wonderful. And I do know these red children are so much more. They operate from the inside out, from divine love. So, what you said about Urvi picking the people around her, I think she recognizes the soul energy as
Absolutely.
Nishaya does as well. So, that's
Absolutely.
beautiful.
You can't
Yeah.
fool them by, just showing a few things. They know it in their gut that, whether a person is good news or bad news.
Yeah, 100%. And I think these, from what my understanding, I'm very spiritual. So my understanding is these souls are very old souls. Oh, as in they have done this over and over again. They have had amazing experiences. So this time around, they chose this journey and they chose their people. And so that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I would also like to know, so how did her diagnosis come about? What sort of, took place in those days where you thought, okay, something is looking quite different? How did that happen? And at what age?
Yeah. The first signs that she was not reaching her milestones were, like you said in the introduction for Red Children, it was somewhere about 7, 8 months, because the
Mm.
first 6 months flew by and it was a routine life. She was recovering through another surgery that she had gone through. So initially it took us time to diagnose that she is missing milestones, because we were blaming the hand reconstruction surgery that she went through, that she can't crawl because she has a bandage. She can't try to sit and stand because she has a bandage. So it took really a long time for us to understand that she's really missing her milestones. But on her first birthday, her father is the one who realized it first, that, she is not behaving in a normal, so-called normal way for a 1 year old child. She looked through her cake cutting celebrations. She didn't really look into the eye of the people who had come for her birthday. And that was our first red flag that, something's a little amiss. So I think we had gone for a regular hand checkup at the Bombay Hospital in Marine Lines, Mumbai, which is when the doctor told us there. He's a very experienced doctor. He said, you know what, hand and everything all good, but you really need to get her brain checked. There is something a little amiss. And that is where the circle and the wheels of time started running crazy fast. I mean, first we went into shock that, okay, I think there is something which is not really right with our child. So absorbing that and accepting that takes a lot of guts in the very first place, because we always say that, yeah, these things happen, but not with us. It's always
Mm-hmm.
somebody else that it is going to happen with. So, yeah, it took us, I think, about a week to understand that, the doctor is not wrong. We need to look at her first birthday till about when she was 2.5 years. We went through a ton of doctors, dozens of tests, but luckily, thanks to the divine, we found the right doctors at the right time, which is, it is a blessing to do that, because otherwise you go into this whirlwind of a series of doctors and one diagnosis to another diagnosis till you actually achieve the real one. So we found right doctors. We found the right pediatric neurosurgeon, Dr. Shekhar Patil. We found her good pediatrician, Dr. Vidya Kamath, and they guided us. They truly guided us through. And 2.5 years in the month of September, after everything being cut out that she's not this, not this, not this, not this, she was diagnosed with Rett syndrome. That was 23rd of September, and she was 2.5 years of age. The diagnosis was one part, sister, but I think understanding what Rett is was more of a shock. Diagnosis itself wasn't that. We were happy that she's diagnosed. Okay, now we know why she is behaving the way she is. But then to understand what Rett syndrome is was like, okay, time stood still.
Did your medical team deal with any red child prior to you guys?
No.
So they did an
They
amazing job.
they knew Ret, but nobody had actually dealt with the live, real Red child and the repercussions of being a Red child, all the other things that are attached to her. But they were crazy cooperative, as in, if I may call them at 12 o'clock at night, they definitely used to pick up my call, understanding that, yeah, she's a Red mother. She won't call just like that at such an odd hour. So that support also is very crucial, and especially getting it in India is all the more, rare.
Yeah, I think this is where all the social media groups come in really handy, because I know you got in touch with me and I've been in touch with other parents, because we know at least we have a forum where we can ask each other. Because I remember,
Yes,
I think Urvi was having seizures and you had
yes,
come to me and you asked me about Nishaya's seizures, and you even asked about the medication. Then I shared the medication. So I know a
absolutely.
little, people talk about how bad social media is, but look at what social media has done for us, right? It's
I
how you use it.
agree. It's about how you use it. It's about what you do with that technology that is, available to us. So I think it is the perspective again.
100%. So someone that might be listening and they don't understand Rett syndrome to the extent me and you do, can you sort of share about Urvi's day-to-day activities? Like, I know they have very high needs. So could you just share a little bit about what a daily day, routine looked like for
Look,
Urvi?
yeah.
Mm.
So I think after we settled with the diagnosis of being a Rett mother and father, we first went through Googling what next. I mean, what is she going to portray now? What kind of a child she's going to be? And again,
Mm-hmm.
coming to the social media part, I mean, if it would not have been for Google and YouTube and connecting on Instagram, I don't know whether we would have had enough information to deal with Urvi and to expect the unexpected. So many a times I and Sachin were ready for her entire routine for a day, expecting things well in advance, because we knew and we had read that, okay, Rett syndrome girls do this. Okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
expected. I mean, we don't need to be going into shock every single time she has a seizure, because, okay, expected. So flow of information was one important thing. And talking about living an entire day with a Red child, it changes gradually as per their age per se. But I think Urvi settled into a routine by the age of 4.5, and 5. Her father was the most important, what can I say, aspect to streamline her routine. I mean, he's the one who used his brain and the research he had done to actually give me. We literally had things written on our fridge. Okay, it is 8 a.m. What are we supposed to do? It's 12 p.m. What are we supposed to do? So he had set a routine for her, which made her comfortable, very much so, towards the end of her life also. So I think our day used to start at 8:30. We used to feed her porridge, which was a jaggery one, gluten free, because that used to help her digestion and avoid constipation, which she had trouble with in her initial, I think, 3 years of life. She struggled with gas and constipation, but we didn't understand what was wrong with her, because
Mm.
it took us time to understand that they can't digest the gluten ingredient meals. So yeah, we used to start with porridge. Then we had a whole bathing routine, calming her down. I used to do her massages. And I think I used to leave for work by that time. I used to cook a meal for her. Then her father used to feed her sharp at 12:30, because if you understand better, they can't tell us that they are hungry. And Urvi never could actually show that, I'm hungry or I need this or that. So everything was guesswork. So our timetable helped us a lot. So around 12:30, we used to give her food enough for her, what can I say, appetite, not more, not less. Then around 4:30, again a small snack just for our satisfaction, that if she may be hungry, we need to provide her that. Then a nice evening stroll, and like I said, she enjoyed music. So over the period of time, we had her favorite songs, favorite cartoons. She used to love watching a channel from Azerbaijan. That aunt used to cook beautiful chicken recipes, and because she was a foodie, she used to look at it with all big eyes. Yeah. And in the evening, I used to come back, feed her again, and then again a soft massage and playtime. And I used to love singing for her. She used to enjoy chatting with me, listening to all my dramatics. And yeah, I used to, I think, read a story or two for her and try to put her to sleep. And of course, the sleeping aids, as in the medicine, the what do you call sedative, was a part of her life since she was 2.5 years of age. So yeah, we used to give her a little sedative, try to see whether she will be able to poop or not, because pooping for our child also, unfortunately, is a task. It is a major one. So we used to try to relieve her of her stool at night and then make her sleep comfortably. Yeah. So it sounds quite okay when I say it out loud, but it wasn't that easy. I mean, it used to take quite a lot of strength, not physical, mental, to sail through each day and to sail through seizures as a part of random occurrences throughout the day.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking while you were talking, I was like, there's so many similarities there. We've never discussed all this, but as you're talking, I'm like, wow, this is exactly what we do for Nishai. Constipation is big. Seizures is a big part of it. Nishai loves music. Nishai is a foodie too. It's like, oh my goodness, you might as well have mentioned Nishai, because everything you're talking about,
True.
these kids are so similar. It's just amazing.
True.
Sachin was the main carer looking after, like you mentioned. I mean, isn't that a blessing? Like, we were just talking off camera as well. We are so blessed to have partners and husbands that actually are so devoted to our children.
Also, from India perspective, if I may say this, a man sitting at home taking care of his child is it's a far-fetched thought, and not something that people digest easily. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, we red parents are blessed. I mean, we had people around who have always been appreciating his participation as a father. They consider him that he's been such an ideal support system for his daughter. His daughter, I think, definitely Urvi knew somewhere down her soul that this is one guy who's been there with me through thick and thin, and he's understood her even when she did not utter a single word. That love. I think, like we said off camera also, these angels choose us as their parents. It's not us choosing them, it's the other way around. I think God chooses us that we may be having the capability of understanding them and living a beautiful life with them. So, yeah, 100%, rather 300% to Sachin. And I may add this year, I am glad I got married to my best friend because of him being my friend first and husband later. We could uh, throw our frustrations at each other and then forget it in the next moment. We didn't carry it ahead. Why did he say that to me, or why did I say that to him? It was just a matter of relieving the tensions that we were having, and we took a conscious decision because I got a beautiful career opportunity from at the career front. We very consciously took a decision that I will move out and try to be the bread winner for the family, and he'll do as much work as he can, but his more focus will be on being the caregiver for Urvi.
That's
So we are a
amazing.
little odd, but yeah, we are what we are.
No, but that's absolutely amazing, and I sincerely believe that Urvi chose Sachin, because, like you said, and especially with the Indian culture, men are looked upon like the breadwinners, right? And Indian community, they will talk, or he's sitting at home doing nothing and all that
Absolutely.
stuff. But I think what Sachin has done, it's going to be the
Nobody else
greatest.
could.
No one could have done it. In our case, my husband is the breadwinner, but
Absolutely.
he is as
Same.
amazing, and he takes, like, at the moment, I was just telling you, they are downstairs having, I'm actually in Nishai's room because it's Saturday night. I didn't want to take the space downstairs, so they are having dinner downstairs while we're
Dinner
recording
done.
upstairs in Nishai's room.
That feeling that we have, that we don't need to care for our child because her father is there. That
Mm.
itself is a blessing. Otherwise we are like worried, half we are half focusing on the work, half our heart is with the child because there's nobody to take care. That support can't be replaced with anything. That is what our husbands give us, right?
They give us so much peace, and we know that no matter what, they will always just look after them so well. We don't have to worry
True.
about it. Like right now, I'm just carefree. I'm up here. I know that she's downstairs, well taken care of. So it is an
Absolutely.
amazing
Also,
blessing.
yeah, also, sister, I would want to add, in India, sometimes when you have a special needs child born in a family, they always blame the mother. So that is one thing. It's very, I don't know. I mean, it's always on the mother that, the mother did something, which is why the child turns out to be what they turn out to be. But again, touch wood, luckily, none of my family members, my in laws or my immediate, my maternal family, Nobody even uttered a single word like this is because Radhika is what she is, or I don't know why this has happened with none of them. Everybody very, very positively. They looked at Urvi very, very positively, which gave us the strength, to sail through that phase of understanding Ret and approaching it in the right way.
Doesn't it make a difference? I will share one small thing that I had to go through. And you said in India, usually the mum gets blamed. I live in New Zealand in a Western world class city, right? Well, one day I got to hear, and it was a very close family member that told
Yeah.
me that someone had spoken and said, well, Neelam's sitting at home eating while Nick is, out working and trying to earn money. And I just thought, oh my God, like, how could you even
People
say that? Am I sitting here and eating, or ever am I actually looking after my child? So it's interesting how you said in India, but I think
it's everywhere,
it's
I think,
everywhere.
right?
It's everywhere. It depends on the person. It made me so angry, but I thought to myself, if they don't have the knowledge to understand why we're doing what we're doing, then it's not on me to go and say it, because that's their karma, that's their thought pattern. So interesting, but yeah, it happens everywhere. But you're so blessed that you didn't have to hear anything like that. And I was going to ask you this anyway. In general, in the Indian society, having a special needs child, generally, apart from blaming the mum, sometimes they talk about, oh, maybe you did a bad karma or this and that. Did you guys ever experience that kind of judgment from anyone?
Maybe, very honestly, I don't remember also because I used to zone it off. Like, okay, it does not need to be in my mind space. But very honestly, when I talk about India being judgmental, I also personal experience would talk. I am glad we were in India because relatives, not relatives, everybody, when I started talking about Urvi positively, oh, the love she received. I think there might have been a few people judging her situation, or calling her, in India we say bichari in Hindi. So there might have been a certain percentage of people doing that, but if I say in about 100, there were 90 people looking at her as a beautiful soul. So I think
Right.
I zoned out the at the 10%, and so I don't think I took it personally or Sachin took it personally with respect to karma. Also, whatever feed, whatever I used to post on Instagram, I used to have lovely comments that people used to, very supportive, very filled with love. So yeah, with that point of view, and see, my feed is generally going to Indian people. So that is where I received a lot of love, lot of love. So I think I am saved from that negativity, I hope.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that's brilliant, because I think you do get to a point where you start blocking things out because you see how it starts affecting you. Nick and I did that as well. We were very conscious about where we were taking the show, because if we felt any sort of judgment, whether it was intentional or unintentional, because sometimes I think people lack knowledge and they're just curious.
Absolutely.
A stare might look like to us judgment, but they might just be seeing what this
Agree.
person is going through.
They
So
might
we
be
had
seeing
to,
her for the first time, something like her for the first time.
yes, so it was a lot of, but it's not easy. Initially, it's not easy because we're all human beings, right? So we are getting used to our stuff, trying to, get everything together for the day. And if you have outside energy coming through. So that's one thing we're very cautious about. To this day, our child is like a gift to us. And,
Agree.
she spreads
Agree.
love in the world. So just like Urvi, we just, yeah,
I agree.
we love our little
Uh,
angel.
I absolutely agree with these, these concepts that you both are following, because I think subconsciously Sachin and I also started zoning out people also who weren't appreciating Urvi. So I think
Mm,
they were a part of our circle or our life. So I always have been saying this, that maybe our circle was tiny, but it was very precious. I mean,
yeah.
good vibes only, I think was the slogan that he used to carry, that if you do not have good vibes, my daughter is not going to appreciate you. And of course, we are not going to appreciate you. So thank you very much. You live your life, we will live ours.
Yeah.
Whatever you in your eyes. And I think it is the perspective, dear. The way we look at our child, the world is going to look at her. If we
Exactly.
ourselves are going to look at her with pity, with sorrow, with depression in our hearts, we can't expect the people to look at her positively, right? So, like you said, initially we aren't angels, like we are human beings. It takes us time to absorb that, okay, this is what life is going to look like. And I think when I read about Rett syndrome for the first time and when I explained it to Sachin after Urvi's diagnosis, um, it took us roughly 3 to 4 months to understand and adjust to the concept that now, for the lifelong, whatever life we have, we will be special needs parents and we won't be ordinary people. And oh, it was depressing. I mean, we were devastated. And I still remember Sachin's very close friend. We called him just like that, that, you know what, this is a diagnosis. And it still is there with me and Sachin. The one thing that he said to us was, one day at a time. Do not plan for the future. Do not think about anything else. Just let it be. Live one day at a time. And I think that is what we have been doing since then. And I think you agree. It shows on your face that you agree that it is one day at a time. And it's like every day we live is a blessing. And 3 years we struggled, we blamed God that why this with us? What have we done? Because we were young. I was hardly 26 when Urvi was born. Sachin was 30. He's 4 years elder to me. So I think we didn't have the maturity to understand that it was a blessing rather. And the moment we spoke to Sachin's friend and we spoke to our close family members, we spoke to my little brother Prasad, we realized, we spoke to my mom and dad as well. We realized that we need to take this positively. We have blessings of people around us who will support us come what may. And you know what? From that day onwards, Urvi's crying, Urvi's bonding, Urvi's, it all became, the crying went less, the bonding became more. She started smiling year to year. She started enjoying her festivals. That was not because of something she did. It was because of our change in perspective. So it was very vivid that when we started taking positively, oh, she cooperated very well.
It's so amazing how these kids feed off us, right? Of our energy. And like you said, Urvi didn't have to change. It was your perception that changed of Urvi. Yeah. And I just agree with that because these kids are just such a gift and they know why they are here. So they're just waiting for us to
It's
catch
about
up.
us. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Also, while talking about Urvi's routine life, I would definitely like to mention both her physiotherapists. Initially, when she was tiny, she was being treated by Dr. Chaitanya Mantri. He, a very good doctor, assisted her very well, took care of her while treating her because she was really tiny. And later on, towards the end, for 2.5, 3 years, Urvi had a best friend, and his name was Dr. Borkar. He was her physiotherapist for straight 2.5, 3 years. We used to meet every 2 days in a week, and oh my, the joy she used to get to see him, to meet him. He used to sing for her, and I mean, she started looking forward to those physiotherapy sessions. So yes, I mean, I need to give credit to both of them, and I think Dr. Porkar remembers her, and he will keep remembering her lifelong, because I'm sure wherever she is, she definitely knows who her best friend is and the wonderful moments she spent with him. So yeah, like I said, we are blessed with amazing doctors even now and also then. And I can't talk about Urvi without talking about both of them.
Can we take a turn because we have a few more things we want to cover? If you could if you feel comfortable sharing, can you talk about the time surrounding Urvi's passing and things that led up to that, please?
Yeah. So, like I was discussing with you off camera, I would definitely want to talk about that phase here because I can say, fortunately, unfortunately, it was the saddest but the most beautiful phase, absolutely planned by the divine. I mean, it wasn't something that a human being would have thought and planned. It went so beautifully. Yeah, some I mean, it may sound a little harsh that I'm saying it went beautifully, where I mean it was the end of Urvi's life, but I think she went to heaven just at the right time, so that she could come back to us again, because maybe a few years of delay and I might not have been able to conceive also. So yeah, I'll jump to that point later, but it was just one random afternoon, and I would want to add this here. With Sachin as the caregiver, as the primary caregiver, we had our nanny, the another person who had, we had hired to take care of Urvi. Now, generally, when we talk about persons who come to take care, it's for them, it's their job. But like I said, being blessed comes with a lot of things in it. This female that came into our life, we call her our elder sister. Like in Marathi, we address her Tai. So this Tai of ours, I mean, she became a part of the family. I don't know when. The care and the love she started having for Urvi, the connection that Urvi had with her, it showed. And I'm describing her because she was the first one, dear sister, to realize that there is something which is amiss with Urvi and the way she's behaving. Imagine, it was not the mother, not the father. We weren't home. We were out shopping for some routine grocery things, and she was home. And she called us, in a very hurried tone that, you know what, you need to come back home. There's something which is not right with Urvi. So the first red flag was not raised by a person related by blood. It was raised by the person related by love, I think, if I may say
Yeah,
that.
it's
And she was
beautifully
the one
worded.
who, yeah, she was the one who recognized that, you need to come and look at Urvi. So we rushed back
Mhm.
home. We realized that, okay, yeah, her breathing had become a little staggered. She was not breathing normally. Her eyes were not as glowing as they are. We called up her pediatrician. She said, you know what, do a chest x-ray and get a blood test done and come to me immediately in the evening. So we did a chest x-ray. The blood, we didn't realize it then, we realized it later. The blood person who had come home to take her blood couldn't find her vein. It was something weird. He tried for about half an hour and he couldn't. So finally we took her to the pediatrician only, understanding that it's something difficult. And she had a fever of 104 degrees by that time. So 104 is like an alarming, level of temperature. So we took her to the pediatrician. Pediatrician looked at her. I think the doctor realized it then. I didn't actually. As a mother, we are always hopeful, and we never imagine that suddenly one afternoon it will be the end of our child's life. So she told me in the evening that, you know what, Radhika, you did your best, but it's a little tough now, and you need to admit her to the hospital. So I think I started crying then because somewhere I understood, but I think I wasn't ready to accept it. And we rushed her to the hospital, a very good hospital here at Santa Cruz, Surya. We rushed her. Her BP was sky high. She practically wasn't breathing. I think hardly a few breaths here and there. She was admitted immediately. All the not ventilator, the oxygen and everything. Yeah, for us and Sachin, for me and Sachin, it was like, okay, we have admitted her, now fine, it's okay, it will be taken care of. And like I said, we had our immediate friends who had been family with us throughout as a part of people taking her. I also would want to add that I have a little brother, my Rakhi brother Prasad. He's younger to us. He's 10 years younger to Sachin. But I can't tell you the bond he has had with Urvi. He was her dada, the elder brother, who knew her in and out. She's not ill. This guy is there with us. She's having a seizure. This guy is there with us. We want to take her out. This guy is there with us. So I think towards the end of her life, this guy was there with us while admitting her to the hospital. Some bonds are beyond the blood. They are they
Mm.
are they are made by God. So that is what this bond was with Urvi and her Prasad Dada. So he came along with us. Sachin's friends came along with us. We admitted her. I went through the night. She was in NICU. I went through the night. I think somewhere in the night I realized that now Urvi is not going to open her eyes ever again. But that is something I had realized. It was her father who had crazy hopes that his daughter's going to come back home, hale and hearty, again into the routine. So I let another day pass by. Through that day, my friend's husband, who's a pulmonary specialist, he's an ICU doctor, he came, he saw her condition. I very much, respect him for that fact. He gave me a reality view of what her situation is because it's difficult. Sometimes people don't tell the parents what the reality is. They just want to soften the shock. But he told me, you know what, Radhika, this is what it is. She's not going to come out of it. I think in about a day, she will be transferred to a ventilator as well. And I have a brother who stays a little into our native place side. He coordinated with me through the phone. He's a very experienced pediatric doctor. He told me, Radhika, the solution out of this is discharge her without medical advice, take her home, give her the best of love that you have at your place, and bid her goodbye. Because even if she comes out of it, she's going to be a vegetable. There's no sense in, keeping her just because you want her to be there with
Yeah.
you. It will be unfair. It will be unfair. And like I said, I already knew. I couldn't admit, but I already knew. So I think on the 21st of August, Sunday morning, I was there at, I think, around 4 o'clock in the morning. I called up Sachin because nobody was sleeping. My mother in law, my sister in law, my parents, everybody were like on red alert mode that we don't know what's going to happen now. I called up Sachin. I said, you know what, Sachin, I need to talk. You come here ASAP. He came to the hospital. I explained to him the situation. It took him a lot of, I can't explain it in words. It took him what to understand that maybe we'll have to bid farewell to our daughter. Because, you have to understand he was in the zone. He was not expecting this because he had not seen her in the NICU. He had always heard from me whether okay, she's doing okay, she's on oxygen. So when somebody does not see her with her own eyes, he does not realize that it's the end. So I told him, you know what? Don't listen to me. You go inside, sit with Urvi for 10 minutes, look at her, and tell me what your heart says. He went inside. He saw, and like I have mentioned earlier, he knew her better than me. I am not ashamed to say that. He definitely knew her better than me. He went inside, he looked at her, and somewhere I think he realized, yeah, it'll be better to give her a very nice farewell, free her from her bodily restraints, let her soul sail, get all the blessings, and maybe she'll come back. He came out. He told me, you know what, Radhika, I will let her go on one condition that we are going to try for Urvi to come back again. So I think that is the day we took that decision of planning for the future. Yeah, a little foolish maybe, but yeah, it is what it is. And we took discharge. We came home, sister, and like I said, I'm blessed with a beautiful family. My elder sister had lit candles because we loved essence candles. The house was lit with candles. It had a beautiful scent welcoming Urvi. The entire family was there. All our near and dear ones, even for that matter, my students who had so much love for Urvi, they were all there even before Urvi reached home. Urvi came home with in her favorite car. Sachin's friend again, he had his BMW. It was Urvi's favorite car. So her last ride back home was in her favorite car in a BMW. She came home. I knew, I didn't have a doubt in my mind that she will be breathing till the time we reach home. So we came home. We put her in front of our Kula Devata and Shrimataji, who we, always surrender to. And we took her into the bedroom, her favorite bed. She was on her laps. We were singing our favorite song, her favorite song, her extremely close to our heart song, and she breathed her last on our laps, on both our laps. And I think it can't get any more peaceful or beautiful than how it went. She breathed her last, but like I said, she was a fighter, so it took a very long time for her heartbeats to stop. So she had stopped breathing. And I still remember vividly her doctor, pediatrician, saying that, you know what, she's a fighter. She's showing it till the end that she's a fighter because her body might have not cooperated, but her heart still wants to keep pumping. It took us a long time. And then the most beautiful thing happened. We buried her that night. And after the burial, again, like I said, I sang a song for her just as my token of love. And it just rained a small shower as if, the universe accepted her back in its own lap. So it was the most beautiful thing, I think, as a mother for me to see that, God gave her to me and took her back very gracefully. We dressed her up in a very nice, fresh pink frock. I did her nails before we said her a final goodbye. And I think she came as a doll and she went as a doll. So nobody saw her, ill or not in a position to see. Everybody was very glad to. I mean, she went as if she was just sleeping, and that rain, it is always etched in my memory. It's been 4 years now, but I will never forget one moment of that particular day. And I think, yeah, it was a very beautiful and peaceful ending. So, yeah, this is what it is. This is what it means to lose a child. But you know what? I knew that she's free from her pains. Her father was very confident that what we did, we don't need to regret it for even a minute. Yeah, we had to take a conscious decision of removing the oxygen. But who are we? It's all divinely planned. I think it was meant to be. And that is why we cried. We did everything. But we never feel the pain per se that, we should have lived one more day with her. No, we are happy. We are happy with whatever we got. It may sound a little weird, but yeah, it is what it is.
No, I mean, it might sound weird to other people, but I totally understand because I think when these children come, they completely change the perception of how you see life. Every day is a gift with them, and you do know divinely everything's orchestrated. The day they enter our life to the time they will leave, it is all divinely planned. Radhika, I just want to just honor you for being able to share that so beautifully, because I know how hard it is to still go through it. Your eyes are telling me, as a mom, you're still, obviously, it's always going to stay with you. But to speak about your child in such a beautiful way to honor her, I mean, hats off to you, because, you
Thank
speak
you
with
very
so
much.
positive, like, attitude. I'm sorry, I'm just getting a little bit emotional,
No
but
problem. Yeah,
no.
because Sachina and I feel that uh, why pull her towards us? Why not let her soul just move ahead in that journey? Because we being sad is going to reach her somewhere. So why not just make her feel peaceful by telling her that we are happy wherever we are because you are free from all your pain.
And that part of Urvi will always be connected with you. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I do actually remember when Urvi went into hospital, you had messaged me. I don't know if you remember, because
Ah,
obviously you were
yes,
going through
I
so
know.
much.
No, I remember, yes.
Yes.
I remember I had also asked for prayers, and I would want to, one more thing I want to add here. I came to know of the group quite late, but India has an Indian Rett Syndrome Association, and it's founded by a Rett parent just like us, Samir ji, and he's doing a fabulous job connecting Indian Rett parents with each other. He is like one call away. If you have any trouble, he's that father figure that every Rett syndrome parent has in India. His daughter is a Rett syndrome child. I think she must be 28, 27 years old. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but yes, in that range. And he's very experienced, very full of love, like we all Rett parents are. And he also helped me when Urvi was in the hospital. I mean, he connected me to the respective experience with the Rett doctor. So, I will never forget these people. These people are like those precious diamonds that we have had in our life. So, yeah, that is one thing. Like I messaged you, I messaged him that, you know what, Samirji, this is what it is. And the next moment, I know he's calling me up, trying his best to help Urvi, even when he had not seen her. So, that kind of love.
And I think it's God. He puts all these people in your path. We actually have someone probably just like him, an older gentleman. He's got a daughter who's about 23 or 24, Dougal.
Yes,
And
yes.
he's the one that coordinates all these events. And they've created this group. It's Rett New Zealand, and they keep people together.
Absolutely.
So, I always feel that it's almost like God has pre-planned everything. Yes, our journey is hard. We have hard days, but ordinary people have hard days too. But the beauty and the magic and the love, the pure unconditional love these children give us, I think Nick and I, like, we always say we are the most blessed because we got to be Nishaya's parents, and you guys got to be Urvi's parents. So
absolutely. And it changes the way people look at us. I mean, if we do that positively, I've seen the graph of how respect was generated in the eyes of people while they looked at Radhika and Sachin, not as Radhika and Sachin, as Urvi's mom and dad.
yes.
And I think I connected with the students as a professor also more, because I started thinking and viewing them as the children. I mean, they started saying such beautiful things to me. They started having that love towards Urvi. So I think, it became a very big family. And I might not have been that positive if I would not have been Urvi's mama.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, you just slightly touched on it, but 5 months later, a miracle did happen for you guys. Can you talk about that, please?
Absolutely. So yeah, like I said, I touched it when Sachin said that, you know what, Radhika, yes, we will free Urvi. I agree. But I definitely pray to God that, he needs to send her back to me. And yeah, Urvi left 21st of August 2022. And 5 months down the line, in the month of January, precisely 15th of January 2023, bam, we realized that we have conceived again. And the blessing is again coming towards us in a new form. And yeah, we were like, I think we were happy, but it was a day we cried crazy. I don't know why, but I think crying was the correct emotion on that day, because we were overwhelmed कि यार अभी उर्वी को बाय बोला है, बस 5 ही महीने नहीं है हमारे साथ, span of 5 months. And yeah, you know what, this can't be possible without divine blessings. It just can't. You can keep planning, but nothing will turn around. It turns around just the moment you surrender.
Divine intervention, right? The moment you
Yeah.
surrender, there's so much power in surrender. And I always talk about it because it's almost like we step back and we say, Divine, now it's in your hands, do whatever. And you get to a point where you're always okay with however it works out as well. You're not stuck on this, oh, it has to
Absolutely.
go this way. So can we
Absolutely.
talk about your little miracle, Urvik?
Yes, so it was Urvi's first death anniversary, and I was already 9 months pregnant. I mean, what more blessing can a person expect? I say this to my students, especially when I'm teaching ethics, that life gives you a crossroad. Now you got to choose whether to take the negative road or to take the positive road, because you will agree, I think, sister, that after the loss of a child, many a times the couple just parts ways. I mean, it's too much to handle for a couple, as a couple, primarily as a mom and dad, that it something breaks. Now, yeah, I may say that, yeah, we are taking positively, but I think Urvi took a part of our heart along with her, which I don't think is going to come back ever. But yeah, whatever remains, whatever love remains, I think we try to share it with each other. Sachin was more hurt. He was more devastated, but I think he still took care of me as a mother who lost her child. I think he became the higher and better person to take care of me through the journey, through the entire pregnancy. And but he wanted a daughter. Oh, he desperately wanted a daughter, because once a girl father, you are always a girl's father. Uh, you can't take that away from them. And I think Nisha's dad will definitely agree that there's nothing precious in the world to a father than their child, especially our red child. So there's no replacing that. And I think he was looking forward. It was Urvi's anniversary. We pray to God that, thank you for letting us all sail through. And that's it. 21 days down the line, bam, this naughty boy arrives in our life. And the doctor was the same doctor who delivered Urvi. So I remember having this C-section going on. I'm all awake, and this naughty child bounces out of my tummy, and the doctor says, you know what? Urvi has a brother. And I'm on cloud nine. But I'm still stressed. Now, what am I going to tell my husband? That there's no baby girl coming. So the doctor said, would you want to
Sachin's
talk?
not allowed in the room during delivery?
No. In India, they're not allowed in the room.
Oh, okay.
They sit outside. They're not allowed in the delivery room per se. So the doctor is our friend, and she's been there. So she told me, you know what, Radhika, you want to call Sachin? I was like, yeah, but I think I might avoid that at this point of time. But nevertheless, she gave me the phone. I told him, you know what, Sachin? In Marathi, I said, Mulga Zala, there's a boy. He's like, okay, you can keep the phone now, and bam. Oh, he was traumatized. I can't tell you. He's like, where is my daughter now? How am I going to talk to my daughter? I need a girl. I need a girl. And like I said, Prasad and my in-laws and my parents, they were all like, okay, are we celebrating this or not? You please make this clear to us because your husband is sad. Now I'm saying this vividly, why I'll tell you. Yeah, Sachin was really, really sad that, his daughter had not come back, and there was this boy. He was happy as a
we just
father.
want to make it clear that there's no sexism there, but it's because he was waiting for his Urvi to come back. Yes.
He really wanted that gender. And because we had always been a girl child parent, it took us time to call him, because it was always her in the conversations. What is she doing? What does she want? So I think 5 days, it was always, what is she? No, it is he now. It is he now. It took us time to understand. And I think Sachin was sad on day one. It took him time. He took him in his lap, I agree, but he was crying with a lot of mixture of emotions.
Yes.
Yeah, bam, this is done. 12 days straight, he's adjusting to the fact that now he's a son's father. I am adjusting. I still remember crying that what are we going to do with Urvi's precious belongings that we have kept in the cupboard? We wanted to use it on a daughter, blah, blah, blah.
Radhika, do you think that was part of grief as well? Because you guys, it was still only, a very short
We never got time to cover the grief.
Yes.
We didn't really legit go into depression and come back. We were always sailing on the borderlines of it, because I think we wanted to move on. But in the process of moving on, one phase of absorbing and dealing with our emotions was something that we really did miss in between. I think that caused the aging also.
I think that's a really important part to probably just talk about a little bit, because I think sometimes when we do bypass the emotional grief stage, eventually it does come. And everyone grieves differently, so there's no right or wrong. It just had
There's
to
no
happen.
harm, and there's no shame in it.
Yeah, exactly. Just the way it has to happen, right?
So his backlogged grief was coming back, and yeah, again, as a father, his instincts were right on point. He was doing everything he wanted to for his child, but that spark, that
Yes.
in his eyes, that glow in his eyes, I could see it was missing. I think on the 12th day, we put Urvik on the Parna, I think, cradle. We
Like
do
a
it on the
bassinet?
12th day. Because we put the child in the cradle on the 12th day because it's the most auspicious day. And we just whisper a name, a temporary name for the child. Because actual naming ceremony we do later when the child is a little more grown up. So we
Okay.
did that. And on the 13th, 14th day, till that day, actually, Urvik was crying. Urvik was cranky. He was drinking milk, still crying, blah, blah, blah. It was not really very pleasant, like initially with every children. It takes a time to understand the routine. But this guy was crying crazy. So you know what? I think Sachin and I realized that our grief and our not letting go of and hanging on to Urvi was something that was impacting this child that had come into our lives. I think something clicked in Sachin, and our Thai also told us that, you know what? Don't you think this is Urvi only who has come? Just a matter of gender change. So I was like, you know what? I agree, but this father of hers should agree, right? On that night, I mean, I don't need, I'm not exaggerating. On that night, Sachin, I told Sachin that, you know what, Sachin, you need to now, it's about time you accept that this is your angel who has come back. God has given her to you. Maybe there is a reason why she is not of the same gender, but she's that same soul. You need to accept that. About time you do that, and consider him that he is your Urvi. I think Sachin also understood that, the grief phase was enough now. It's been 14 days. On the 14th day night, he whispered in the ears of Urvik that, you know what? You are my Urvi, and I welcome you back. And I'm sorry, it took me time to understand this. Things changed. From the next day onwards, all crying, all crankiness, everything gone. Urvik started gaining weight properly. He started drinking milk properly. I still have goosebumps when I, say this, that it is so important for us to accept and understand that miracles are happening. It's just us who are not looking at it in that particular way. I mean, it was just needed that Sachin accepted that this is Urvi. The moment he said that in Urvik's ear, everything was back to normal. And from that day onwards, this naughty Urvik has never looked back. He's just what he is.
Oh my God. I was actually about to ask you, is there a part of you that believes that Urvi is Urvik? And you already answered it for me. So you guys, that's amazing. That's so from the moment he whispered and welcomed her back, things changed.
Things changed to such a beautiful way. He started looking at us, he started crawling, and Urvik's, he's been fast. He came early, all hale and hearty, but very early. And he started walking early, he started talking early. So I think he's just 2.5 years old now, but yeah, he knows his stotras, all the shlokas, and he loves to speak. He will keep going on and on. I think he knows that he has a 6-year-old backlog of his sister. He needs to cover it up.
Wow, that's beautiful. That makes me so happy. And I have seen Urvik's photos, and he looks very similar. I think they have the same eyes. When you look at both their eyes next to each other, because you used to do the photos, I was like, oh, wow, that is Urvi. And I will get some photos of you so we can put it in the podcast.
You know, it's like Urvi with the pony and Urvik without the pony.
Yes. I do know that you are a strong devotee of Sri Mataji. Can you just talk about your faith, like how it just took you through this? Because I know without faith, nothing's possible, right?
Absolutely true. And I'm glad you asked me this question because in today's time, people undermine accepting that there's a higher energy, whatever name called. You don't need to really name it per se. But yeah, I was born to my mom and dad after 14 years after they got married. I mean, I was one child who was never meant to be born, but without medical intervention, once my mom and dad became the followers of our spiritual guru, Shri Adi Shakti, Shri Mataji Nirmala Devi. They became Saj Yogis. Yeah, bang, I was born without, any expectations or, things in the minds of my parents. From the day I was born till today, I'm 36 years old. We have always been meditating. We have always surrendered every single thing to our Divine Mother's lotus feet. And it's turned beautiful. Yeah, see, people may say, oh, you are a follower of Shrimataji and she is a holy mother and this and that. Then why did you went through all this turmoil? It's not a turmoil. It is just to show that she is the one giving us strength. She is the one who chose us to be the parent of such a beautiful child, to show to the world technically that come what may, life goes on. It goes on beautifully. The only thing you got to hold on to is the faith you have on your divine and the higher energy to just surrender. There used to be days I used to tell Shamataji, you know what? That's it for me now. I can't do anything more now. You just take over and just let things be. I used to pray, again, I hope people won't be judgmental, but I used to pray that if Urvi is going to have a hard life later, just let her go away, let her go back to heaven. I can't see the child suffering just because we want to see her in front of us. There's no point in looking at our child going through seizures and medical issues and pipes going all the way just because we want her to be here. If you think that the best course of action for her is to go to heaven, okay, let that be. And I think I also prayed that if her soul is going to attain moksha, let it attain. It's okay. You can send a new soul to us. It's absolutely fine. So yeah, I think these things of grounded faith and meditation and the confidence that everything will be done right by Shrimataji is what my parents blessed me with, and I hope I take it forward and show Urvik also that life is beautiful. You just need to surrender.
You've beautifully said it. With faith, everything is possible. They say with faith, you can even move a mountain. And to go through this journey without faith, it's very difficult. Through
Yeah,
Nishaya as well. It's my faith
absolutely.
that carries me through.
I look at the way you both carry yourselves, the glow. You can't bring the glow with makeup. I mean, something that the inner soul shines, it just shines. You can't explain it. But that is again because you both have surrendered yourself. You have the faith. You know that, okay, maybe a negative energy here and there, we can always cleanse it because we're human beings at the end of the day. So it's not about fearing the negative energy, it's about cleaning it.
I think what you said before, that hopefully people won't judge you for your prayer, I think that's the hardest prayer a parent could pray, because we would do anything to keep our child with us. But we love them so much that we're even worrying about them. What will happen to them in the next janam, like in the next life as well, right? So to pray that prayer is such a brave prayer, and I'm sure no one will judge, because it takes a very brave, faithful person to be able to say that prayer.
Yeah, and it's a parent heart. I won't say mothers because in our case the fathers are equally contributing. So it is a parent's heart, and what more of a blessing to our child than divine taking over.
100%. Now, I had asked you to ask Sachin for me, what was the greatest lesson he has learned through Urvi's journey? Could you share his one and your one? I'm quite interested to know, what is the greatest thing Urvi has taught both of you?
Yeah. So if I can give you this background, in Mumbai, we're always running. We are running for something or the other. We are running to catch a local train, or we are running to, I don't know, reach work on time, or we are running for everything. I remember these 6 years of Sachin and my and Sachin's life with Urvi. We didn't run. We let time take its own, way of getting things done through us. And for Sachin to slow down, even when he was a true Mumbaiker, to slow down, not prioritize his work, focus on his child. I think he learned the slow life. He told me I understood what to prioritize more now that you are a human being, what is to be given more importance, what is to be given less importance. And that is one thing he learned. He learned how people change with the changing circumstances. I mean, people change when you are a special needs parent. People around you change. The people who have been there with you through all the ha 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 hoo hoo times might not stay with you through the difficult times where you really needed support. So he saw people change. He started understanding people better. And one thing he told me that, you need to say that he understood what innocent, pure, unconditional love means to the truest of the form, to the, to the last T of that letter in spirit. He understood that there's no better love than a daughter has for his father and vice versa. So I think he had underestimated the power of love, and he understood it once Urvi arrived in his life, and also more so after she went to heaven.
That's
So that
beautiful.
is Sachin's
And
perspective.
that's powerful because these kids don't talk. So whatever love we feel is just the pure, most unconditional love. So thank you for that. And what's your lesson?
My lesson was that a mother is very powerful if she decides to do, and she sets her mind on something. Oh, like you said, she can move a mountain, not literally, but honestly. And for a mother to see her child go through everything, to still remain sane through the entire journey, to still be able to do a multitasking. I never realized, I won't say myself, but I never realized that we women have that kind of strength in us. I mean, she made me realize what I can do, which I never myself knew. She made me realize, oh, I can write a poem just because I am so much in love with her that I can write an entire poetry for her. I can write entire essays in her honor. This was something I never knew. It was inculcated in me by my father, but I think I never had that brain strength to do it. She made me do it. She reminded me that I am a Sahaja Yogi and I am blessed and I can sail through the challenges of life. So yeah, she made me realize that faith, which I was always hanging on to, is the only thing which I will need even after she's left.
Beautiful, beautiful. And only Urvi could have done that.
Yes. So even now, I still have a few days where I'm not. We both, rather, Sachin and I, have our days of feeling low, especially on important days like her birthdays, her death anniversary, or something which reminds her us of Urvi. But yeah, we remind ourselves that it's okay to be depressed. It's okay to be having a few bad days, but we need to remind ourselves that we are Urvi's parents, and come what may, we should be smiling year to year, because if she can do that, why can't we?
That's such a great thing. And I did say there's a reason why we're recording today, because we've been trying to do this maybe for the past 3 years, right? And something would
Absolutely.
always happen. But when I got in touch with you maybe 2 weeks ago, I said, Radhika, should we do it now? You said to me, it's Urvi's birthday on the 9th of May. You would like to do this in her honor. So today's the 25th. We are doing it now, so it gives us a week to edit it, and we will be releasing this in Urvi's honor.
Which is, I'm like, I can't be grateful enough to you for agreeing to do this with me, because I was trying that it's Urvi's 10th birthday, and I need to do something for red children, for red awareness. And what better way to talk to a beautiful red mother, to vibe with her, to understand her heart to heart, and share my journey. And you know what? I appreciate, I mean, like you appreciated me saying it out loud. I know it takes immense guts to listen to a fellow mother talk about the death of a child, a very special red child, because it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not easy to understand that this might be happening with our child. This is the near future, maybe a distant future. Because I remember when I had read about a fellow red child's demise, I mean, she went to heaven. Again, like I said, a beautiful way of going back to God. I just couldn't stop crying. I knew this was something that is a part of our life, but listening to it out loud, reading to it out loud, oh, it's not. It takes, like in Hindi, we say it takes a lot of jigra. It takes guts. So yeah, thank you. A lot of hugs and kisses to you, to Nishi, to our father, for being so supportive always, for inspiring us and staying in touch with us.
Thank you, Radhika. I don't have the words. I've been choking up. I don't know. Like, I'm trying not to say much because I know every time I open my mouth, it's not that I am sad, but you just give me so much you're so positive the way you deal with it. And I just admire you and Sachin for what you guys have been able to do. And it's been my pleasure to do this with you today in Urvi's honor. And we will definitely release it on her 10th birthday. And if this can go out and help anyone in the Red community to see that, yes, our children are vulnerable, but they are the most precious gift from God. I follow so many people, and each Red parent has always said these children are a gift from God. And the way they come
Absolutely.
and change our lives, it is absolutely amazing. And I think it's the biggest blessing if you can sit there and talk about it in such a positive. It's not easy for me to hear because I still have Nishaya, and I know a day will come when Nishaya will pass over too. But if I can do it half as well as you, then it'll be my honor.
No, not at all. And I would want to add this here for both of you. I understand the decision of consciously not trying for another child while you have a red child yourself. Because we were at that patch where, our near ones, out of love for us, were telling us, you know what? Try for another baby. Try for another baby. Your life will take a better turn. Now, full credit to Urvi's father, Sachin. He was very adamant that, you know what? She is my child. She is my only child, and I'm happy with whatever God has given me. And if I have to live alone later, maybe because she leaves us early, that's okay. But I will never ever let her go secondary and try to give some another child a primary love and importance. So I understand you both. I know our biological clocks keep ticking and this and that and everything else, but you know what, God appreciates both of you, not only because you are Nisha's mom and dad and you're taking care of her, but also for making this decision that, no, that's it, she's the one. And yeah, come what may, we'll see whatever the further part is. I think you got my, what I want to say. I mean, I can't put it in enough words now. So
No,
yeah,
I
I
100% got it.
respect you both for that.
Thank you, thank you. And Radhika, it is a very conscious decision that we will never let Nishaya be the second child because we are so complete with her. Everything, we could have never asked for a better child. And some people may find that weird to understand, but we know exactly what we mean. The love she gives us is just enough. And even when she passes, it's everything that we've got with Nishaya. It's enough for me to keep
More
going.
than enough.
More than enough.
Absolutely. More than enough. More than enough. We have those beautiful memories. Rather, if I may say it now, I am still hanging on to those memories because those days were beautiful than what I'm living right now. I mean, yeah, they were difficult, but they were extremely beautiful. And I think for you to be inspiring, for you to be making a mark in your life, you need to go through something. I mean, something that you're passionate about. And I think we as Red parents are passionate about our children. I mean, we live for them.
We live for them because they are so pure. They are the most purest people, kids that we will ever come across. And I think the highest emotion a human being can feel is love. And we are the blessed ones. I actually want to end by saying that I think we Red parents are the blessed ones because we get to experience God in the most purest form through these children.
And I think when this podcast reaches people, reaches general people or our Red parents or, special needs parents, both of us, Neelam and I, Radhika, both of us, we see you. I think I would like to say that we see you, we understand, we know that days are bad. It's okay to be depressed, it's okay to blame God. But I think this podcast of ours would give that silver lining of positivity into your life to see that if two of Red parents can try to move towards positivity and that perspective, I think your positive corner is just around the corner. We just need to reach up to there and the life will change for better. I think that is a message we would definitely want to convey, right?
I couldn't have said it better, Radhika. I think the day you start accepting it, things completely change. It happened to you, it happened to me, and then the magic unfolds. It's not to take away the hard days or
It's okay.
That's the up and down of everyone has that, right? But the bigger picture is just so much clear, crystal clear. Radhika, I just want to thank you again for being here and sharing your story, your sacred journey with Urvi. And I just want to wish you, Sachin and Urvik, the best of love. I was going to say life, but it came out as love. So I'm going to say best of love. That's what they want me to say, because this podcast has just been about love. So I always wish you all the best, and I can't wait to, hopefully I'll come to India one day, or you come to New Zealand, we can actually connect.
Absolutely. I mean, if we are, I think we are destined to meet someday or the other. And you coming down to India, we'll make sure we reach up to you, because I would want Urvik, like I said, he's named after Urvi. I would want him to meet his elder sister, Nishaya. She'll be the version of Urvi that, it will be my honor, Sachin's honor, to show him what Nishaya is, and to, very proudly tell him, this is your Urvi Didi.
Oh, my God, I will. I'm a big manifester, so let's see what the universe has said. Me and you, our faith together. So we'll put it out there to God and universe. Thank you, Radhika, from the bottom of my heart, and to Sachin and Urvik, thank you for your shares.
And tons of love for this channel of yours, for all podcasts you'll be doing in the future, and nothing, a lot of love, lot of luck, and a lot of shine your way. Mwah.
Thank you so much. And I just want to thank everyone. If you are still here listening to us, thank you so much for staying with us and honoring the story. And I know I'm going to be holding and hugging Nishaya just a little bit tighter today. So go do that with your kids, and just enjoy life, because everything is divinely guided. So we'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye.